Okay, go.
Let me start off by saying that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are some of the most important parts of the Reconstruction era. The 13th Amendment freed the slaves in all the territories. The 14th Amendment, in my opinion, was the biggest one because it offered citizenship to any person born in the United States, and with this citizenship came protection under the states, equal protection under the states. And as part of the 14th Amendment, you see some of the radical Reconstruction ideas coming in, like in the 14th Amendment, basically any person who had fought in the Confederate Army or rebelled against the government of the North was not allowed to be in an office of government, and the new government in Reconstruction would not cover any of the debts that had been accumulated by the South or by these rebels during the war era. And then the 15th Amendment kind of shored up the 14th Amendment by giving these black citizens, actually any citizen, the right to vote, well, except women. And these amendments had great effects, but they were only passed because of the North's strong military hold on the South after the war. Even though the North had stopped fighting the South, they still had this military presence in the form of military reconstruction. And because of that, and because of what Sharanya said about having a almost all Northern Republican Congress, these bills, which might have been offensive to some Southerners, actually most Southerners, were passed straight through Congress and then passed, basically forced through ratification in the Southern states. And then specifically for one of the amendments, New Jersey and Ohio were needed to ratify it. And so the Congress basically did a joint resolution instead of having that ratified, and all the amendments were passed through.
Do you want to start on that one, or go to the next slide? Mine is, wait, go back.
Oh yeah, this one's yours.
That one's mine, but then the one before it goes first. Like it flows there, and I do that one first.
For now, let's just go in the order of persons.
Okay. Okay, so I'm talking about how the black codes were like taken in from the South and the North. So the Southerners kind of took the black codes to the extreme. They supported the black codes and the separation of blacks. They did not want like blacks and whites to be able to like intermingle. They liked the separation. And these codes, especially in the South, were influenced for fear of blacks coming into government positions and government power. And they were very hostile towards black. They did not like the fact, they were still resented the fact that these people, like just a few months ago, were their slaves and now they're not. So they did not treat them nicely. And because of this resentment, you get groups like the KKK that started. And many of the laws created just took away basic rights. And now I'll move to the Northerners' take. In the North side, you get many radical Republicans who were against black codes because they thought that it took away basic humanity rights of the blacks. And so because of this, you get almost like the opposite view of the South. They view black codes as slavery in a different form because they were so separate from the rest of the society. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the effects these codes had on the freed slaves. Basically, the freed slaves pushed for a 10-year of office act, and they pushed for many different laws that sent military troops down into the South because they knew that they would need protection. And because the freed slaves pushed so hard for these laws, military troops were sent down to the South. And yeah, okay.
free, so by creating black codes, blacks weren't morally free. Some things that black codes did was it controlled their marriage and their right to hold property, and they couldn't raise their own crops. And for example, in South Carolina, a judge had to issue a special license or certificate to you, so if you wanted to work in another occupation other than agricultural domestic works, then you have to have that. And in like Louisiana, blacks needed permission to enter another town by their employers, and the note had to say that how long they're going to be in the other town, like the reason for their visit. And in Mississippi, you couldn't rent or lease any land outside of cities and towns, and local authorities decided on black ownership.
So, as Courtney said, basically the black codes were like another form of slavery. So, the black codes actually hindered Reconstruction because Reconstruction was like an effort to, I guess, like fix the country and to like remove slavery. And in slavery, blacks had like not as much power as whites, obviously. And the black codes were basically the same thing. They limited civil rights and liberties of blacks. So it kind of, there was no point in like Reconstruction because of the black codes, because it didn't, it intended to like regulate black labor, which hindered Reconstruction.
Okay. So the radical Republicans played a really large role in the radical Reconstruction era, because they believe that they obviously believe that blacks were entitled to the same rights as the white men. But not only that, but they felt that the Confederate leaders who contributed to the Civil War should be punished. And there was in 1866, Congress introduced a bill to extend the life of the free man's route and started to work on a civil rights bill. But then the bill was vetoed by Andrew Johnson, sorry. And because of his veto, it infuriated the moderate Republicans, and basically the moderate Republicans are like a group in the Republican Party that held like moderate liberal views of the issues. And because they were so like infuriated by his veto, they overturned this veto. And then there was the Military Instruction Act, which was passed in March 1867, and it basically it's where the Southern states were divided into like 5 military districts where like which were controlled by generals to preserve like the peace of the former slaves. There was congressional reconstruction during this era where like Congress was like amending the Constitution by like passing the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 10-year of Office Act in 1867 was passed, and this act basically stated that none of the prominent Republicans could be removed without like consent with congressional consent. But then President Johnson he broke this rule by he violated the act by firing Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton, and the radical Republicans really wanted this person to be the Secretary of War because he supported their views, and because of this they got like really mad at the fact that he fired him without congressional, so they used that as a point to put against him during his impeachment, because like they felt like they had control of the Congress and Johnson got in the way. So they impeached him and replaced him with the 18th president, which was Ulysses S. Grant, which was a former general. And at that time, after the passage of the 13th, 14th, and
He's not replaced. He gets impeached, but he doesn't get convicted. He finishes his term. Well, Grant is elected in the next election.
or no, I meant like after he was.
I know, but what you said was he was impeached and they replaced him with Ulysses S. Grant. He is not replaced by Ulysses S. Grant. He is. Do you guys understand the concept of bring you up on charges. You then have a trial by the Senate, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the chief judge of the trial. Johnson is brought up on charges, he is tried in front of the United States Senate, and he is acquitted by 1 vote. So he continues to finish out his term of office. Yes, Ulysses S. Grant is elected as the next president,
Okay.
but to be impeached does not mean to be kicked out of office. To be impeached means to be brought up on charges. That's what happens to Johnson. He's brought up on charges. Yes, you are correct. They use the Tenure of Office Act as their charge. That's the crime he committed. He violated the law by firing him. They wanted to get rid of him. He was in their way. You guys should know all that. But he is only impeached. He's brought up to trial. He is acquitted at trial. He's not kicked out of office. He finishes his term. Ulysses S. Grant is elected the following year.
Okay. The passage of the impact of the nation that this entire era had on that time was the passage of these three amendments gave newly freed blacks an opportunity to come together and win politically and win elections. And the gains of the blacks angered a lot of people actually because this symbolized the rising of the Ku Klux Klan. But then Grant later used force to kind of break the force of the Ku Klux Klan. And later on in the years following that, many blacks were elected to government, connecting to today. And following the end of the Civil War, at first there was some evident racism, still evident in the country obviously, and it still is today. But later on, because of this Reconstruction era, it also influenced many white men were freed, but after that it influenced the fight against rights for women.
Talk about the connection within the Black codes to today. So one of the cases that went on in 2010 was McDonald versus Chicago. So what happened in this case was Chicago made an ordinance that stated that people can have firearms unless they have valid certification of the firearm. So people of Chicago got kind of mad, and they said that the Second Amendment protects their right to bear arms, and also the 14th Amendment due process clause, which says that no state shall deprive people of life, liberty, and their property. So that part, people were getting angry with not getting guns and not being able to have the right to get guns. So this was one of the cases which included the 14th Amendment, which stated that all states have equal rights, all states should give equal rights to everyone. Kind of violated the second right because Chicago was, it was a city, but Chicago was having a different law for guns, but instead of having giving the same rights to everyone for bearing arms. The second one was affirmative action, which is, you might know it because it's going on in the news today.